Hello and welcome back to the Red Path. In today's video I'm going to talk about how to write a World Eaters list that works in 9th edition. Okay, so by now we should all be well aware that 9th edition is an objective based edition. Tabling your opponent is no longer a victory condition. In fact, destroying any models at all is not necessary for victory. The victory conditions are simple: score more points than your opponent. Presumably you understand the fundamentals of how scoring works, but in short, paint your army and score 10 victory points. Pick 3 secondary objectives and score up to 45 points. See my thoughts on these here. Finally, score primary objectives and score up to 45 points. If you max out all 3 categories, you can score 100 points and likely win the game. However, writing a list that can compete is an ever-evolving problem that even the very best competitive players often struggle with, as the gaming landscape is so fluid and volatile, even under lockdown restrictions, that what is seen today as meta may not be so tomorrow. For example, the start of 9th edition had many predicting that Death Guard would be a top-tier army, but so far that hasn't really happened. This may be in part because top Chaos players have adopted the insanely powerful Chaos Demons list, or perhaps too much theoretical was jumped on by the masses without any measurable practical results. Nevertheless, list writing, especially to be competitive, is hard. It's 100 times more difficult when you have an outdated codex and a limited subfaction. So that's obviously what I'm going to try and help advise on today. I also want to quickly caveat that this video is aimed at being fairly competitive. There aren't any cutthroat tactics or win at all costs suggestions, but all advice will be geared to a very optimised list, not something for narrative play. I'm going to split this discussion into 3 main parts, each detailing particular advice on how to write a list. 1. Victory conditions. 2. Strategy. And 3. Achieving the win. First, let's list the sort of things that should inform you how to achieve victory. We won't dive into them too deep, but these are the sorts of things you should be considering when you sit down to plan a list. First, what models can I have available for the game or tournament I plan on playing? Are they painted? Is that paint scheme uniform? Are they WYSIWYG? Are they acceptable as proxies or conversions under any tournament or house rules? 2. What is the meta like where I intend to play? Is everyone running Necrons? Will the rich kid who always has a net list be there? What missions will they be running? Grand Tournament, Eternal War? Will it be a 2,000 point limit? Third, what is your playstyle? Do you just want to enjoy yourself and literally charge everything up into the middle on turn 1? Do you want to play very cerebrally and create pinpoint countercharges and ambushes? Consider these the what, where and how, and from them develop the following solutions. Should you build your list to dominate the primaries? This would be a board control list. What about contesting those primaries but maxing the secondaries? Normally this will be a flexible and elite list. Perhaps you have or want to play an anti-meta list. If you have access to lots of troops such as cultists, marines and berserkers, but not much armour, then you'll want to consider a board control list. You have an abundance of cheap obsec and great combat countercharge obsec and berserkers, so your list can do work by just claiming the board and quickly driving up the primary points. Do you prefer to play with fewer models but have precise control over them? Vehicles, jump pack infantry, powerful HQs and the like? If so, a flexible army that focuses on maintaining balance of the objectives, pushing and pulling for the holdmost, by having fairly resilient units in the centre with specialist units scoring secondary objectives, whether via mobility or their kill power. When you answer these questions, you have a plan on how you're going to achieve victory. But how do you translate these ideas into a tangible presence on the battlefield? Strategy, that's how. If you've decided the sort of army you want or need, something you have available, something that will compete in the meta you want to compete in, and something that fits your playstyle, we'll now need to figure out what it's going to be and how you're going to excel with it. Consider what World Eaters have going for them above and beyond any other army right now. Khan offers full rerolls to shooting units, the most combat effective melee obsec unit in the game, some clutch stratagems in Scorn of Sorcery, Apoplectic Frenzy, Kill Main Burn, Veterans of the Long War and various other combat enhancements, and a general effectiveness in close combat. I've discussed it in several videos now, but I think the best way to play World Eaters is a counter-offensive army. Allow your opponent to meet you in the middle. They need to get there to score those primary points, and you want to be there so you can meet them and kill them and score those points instead. For this, Berserkers have a new lease of life. As showcased by Mr. Schuberg in his recent tournament success, being able to spring a charge from cover with a unit of Berserkers who will likely eliminate any threat or at least whittle it down to gain the objective is a very potent tactic. Supporting this, units that can push forward and lull the enemy into the middle early on by forcing their play is integral. A unit of cultists and a rhino is a very low expense investment, and your opponent will not want to shoot at it. But if that rhino hops onto a central or flanking objective, they have to remove it, and when they do, a unit of obsec cultists drops out to continue to hold it. So then they may have to charge in to finish the job, to prevent you from holding it on your turn, putting their units closer to your pre-planned hiding Berserkers. It's all about laying those traps, and continuing to force your opponent off those 1 or 2 swing objectives, whilst you continue to rack up points however you can. The counter-offensive is only one available strategy, but I think it fits us well. We can tool up a Terminator Lord for a durable beatstick, we can flood cultists and rhinos, we can march demon engines into the centre, we have options. We can make just about any variation of model availability work for us. Helldrakes can tie up enemy mobile units in the first turn. Forge Fiends and Mauler Fiends are great for moving into the middle and absorbing huge amounts of firepower. HQs can go out and murder whatever they want. Havocs and Obliterators can be used to offer firepower. Tanks like the Predator and Vindicators can benefit well from Khan to offer supporting fire. The list goes on. Admittedly, that list is a lot shorter than the Loyalist Marine one, but it's what we have. Adding to the counter-offensive strategy, you need to consider again some of the earlier decisions you made. Given your model availability and the meta you're playing in, what are some plays you can make? I don't know them all, and I won't list all the ones I do, but some I've discussed before include 3 Predators and Khan from reserves, Frenzied HQ summoning Bloodletters from turn 1, a Lightning Claw Red Butcher Blob planting a flag in the centre of the table and yelling "come and get some." Study your units and figure out synergies with HQs and stratagems. Practice and remember what these plays are. Every list has their own, and you need to figure out the little nuances and tricks yours can pull off. Finally, let's conclude how we can use this information to finalise the list and achieve victory. If you know what direction you want to head in based on what I've already said, you should be able to get to grips with a core army list. In a 2000 point meta, assuming that's what you're playing in, I think you should have approximately 500 to 1000 points of concrete units, perhaps 2 HQs and 3 troop units, plus a specialist unit or 2, that you pretty much always consider. For me, it's Khan, a Terminator Lord, 2x5 Berserkers, a squad of 10 cultists, and a squad of 5 Raptors. This is around 600 points of stuff. This means every time I go to write my list, I have a core concept to work with, and can add and subtract extras as I see fit. I normally write 4 or 5 variations of a list around this core. For instance, right now, I've got a triple Predator version, a Charybdis version, a Rhino Spam version, and so on. Anyway, figure out your 25 to 50% core and start there. Figure out what you need to fill in the gaps against your likely opponents, whether it's anti-tank, anti-infantry, anti-psycho, whatever. Start adding parts to your core and figuring out the synergies and tactics that will make them function as a whole under your command. Examine what you come up with and decide whether it's going to play best in taking and holding primaries, and therefore just fighting to keep secondaries equal, or is it continually reacting to opponents' initiative, trying to deny their primary score but focusing on maxing out close to 45 points in secondaries. Sure, it's possible to write a list that does well at both halves of the game, but I don't think we have the tools available in a pure World Eaters list. We lack the true mobility and durability to be a primary point dominator, and we lack the versatility and points efficiency to be able to easily secure secondary objectives. But we can shift our focus to do one or the other quite well. Once you know what you hope your list can do points wise, double check it. Can it deal with a knight? Can it deal with 200 Hormagaunts? Can it deal with 5 Lehman Russes? Can it deal with 40 Primaris Marines? It doesn't need to do all of these well, but it does need to be able to do them. Remember, dealing with a knight doesn't necessarily mean killing a knight. It means either killing it or making its firepower redundant. If a 500 point enemy model is only given options to kill 60 points of cultists each turn, while you're scoring points elsewhere, you are dealing with it. The same idea applies to any of these options. Hopefully by now I've provided some insights into how to approach writing your army lists. I know I didn't come out and say spend 500 points on anti-tank and 274 points on anti-air and so on, because that's not possible. Unless you're chasing net lists, which we most certainly aren't, We all have to get to our success the hard way, and that means using what we have against whoever we can. The key to 9th edition is in playing the mission, and I firmly believe we have the tools to play the mission. It's perhaps not entirely in a playstyle we may be used to, and we may have to do things that will make Khorne shudder, but ultimately, as long as the blood flows, he shouldn't care too much. If we play the mission, and we build our list with thoughtfulness and strategy in mind, we can do some great things. I hope you enjoyed the video, and I hope you have learnt a little something. So as ever, stay healthy, stay safe, and kill main burn.